episode 9. They announced the casting for episode 9 because they've just started shooting, I think here in London. And the big thing that had everyone abuzz was Carrie Fisher's part of it. Everyone was like, what the heck? How is that going to happen? Are they going to put her face above someone else's on top of someone's face, or are they going to use previous footage? Are they going to CGI the crap out of it? You know, all that stuff. I mean, it's happened in the past, right? When they made her look younger in, what was it? I want to say Rogue Nation. That's not right. What's the other one? Rouge One. Right, that's it. Rouge One. When we see her at the end, that obviously was really weird and didn't look right. And I was like, that would just feel so bizarre. Not a good idea. But apparently, it's because J.J. Abrams is back in the director's chair for episode 9 after what I think is Bryan Johnson seriously fucking up the franchise with The Last Jedi. Yes, you can call me on that. And you can quote me on that because I did not like The Last Jedi. There's a few bits in there that I think are good, but overall I'm like, fucking hell, mate. I like Johnson's films, but I think he's just not a Star Wars director. It didn't gel with me. So I'm glad to hear that JJ is obviously back in the director's chair. I like The Force Awakens a lot, even though it was a rehash of A New Hope. But I guess that's kind of what we needed. So I trust in JJ Abrams because he makes films that I usually enjoy. And him saying that he's somehow bringing Carrie Fisher back, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, so to speak. And apparently the way he's going to do it, he is going to be using unused footage from when he was shooting with Carrie Fisher for The Force Awakens. There's quite a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor that has her performance in it. We've previously been told what kind of deleted scenes there were and stuff like that. So there are a lot of chances to include her in the other film and kind of like stitch it together, like have her like here and then everyone else is like actual people that he's shooting right now, and then he's just going to insert her previously talking to some totally unrelated people, but he's just going to stitch it together. And I do believe that he can actually pull this off because he's J.J. Abrams. I think with another director I'd be really worried about this, but with him I think it's a good idea, and it looks like he's got the blessings of her family to do that as well, which I think is a really good idea to get, to make sure that he's not like, you wouldn't want to put Carrie Fisher's face on someone else's face, right? You wouldn't want someone else's performance and just put her CGI'd face on something. That would just be blasphemous, really. So I do believe that JJ is going to do it justice, and I do hope that he's kind of like bringing the Star Wars franchise around, because I really didn't like what The Last Jedi did. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. So I'm happy to hear that we will see Carrie Fisher yet again in another Star Wars movie, because it was really traumatic to see her, what happened to the character in The Last Jedi. That seriously, that space flight scene, I was like, what the fuck was Johnson smoking, thinking that was a good idea? But on to other things. So I'm really excited to have Carrie Fisher also in episode 9. I'm still gutted, just like a lot of other people are. It was supposed to be her big movie, and now unfortunately, obviously it's 1.5 years ago she's left us, unfortunately. Really, really sad news, but it's going to be good to see her again. And on to another potential blockbuster, Charlie's Angels. Now in the last few weeks, I think I mentioned that like a few times, that Elizabeth Banks is going to be directing a new Charlie's Angels movie that's been in the works for quite a while. They didn't really have much of a cast attached to it, and last time that there was some kind of a news outlet reporting on it, we had Kristen Stewart attached to it, Lupita Nyong'o, and what was the lady's name? Naomi Scott from the Power Rangers movie that I still haven't seen. So I got really excited about it because I like Charlie's Angels. I love the TV series, one in the 70s or whatever that was. And I also like the reboot with that Meg G did with Drew Barrymore and Cameron Diaz and Lucy Liu. I thought it was quite a lot of fun. You know, a bit of girl power action movie. I mean, perfect, right? Now the funny thing, and it was I like Kristen Stewart. I just had a conversation last night with my mate who I went to the double feature with, and she really doesn't like Kristen Stewart, and I'm like, I like Kristen Stewart. I don't think that she's a reason for me to go and see a movie, but she's not a reason for me not to see a movie. In general, I like her. Ever since the first time I've seen her in Panic Room, I was like, you know, she's good. But I understand that there's like a lot of hate out there for Kristen Stewart, but there's also a lot of love out there. And overall, I think she's a really good actress, and I like seeing her, so I'm excited for that. And as I mentioned, whenever I was talking about this last, Lupita Nyong'o is attached to the project. That got me really excited because I'm a huge Lupita fan. Now the latest news kind of put a dampen on that because Lupita Nyong'o is no longer attached to the project. There's a new lady involved called Ella Balinska, who seems to be taking over from Lupita because Kristen Stewart and Naomi Scott are still attached to the project. And this is the new big screen take on the TV series Charlie's Angels, and it's going to focus on a new generation, obviously, of angels now working for Charlie Townsend. So Charlie apparently is still around, but it's the same Charlie that was in the 70s. I'm not sure. But there is some kind of a Charlie, probably on a speaker system. And you have three ladies, the angels, who are going to sort stuff out. It's going to be more global, just like the Man in Black reboot or latest film, whatever you want to call it. That's also going to have a more global appeal, which I think is just going to broaden and open it up for more international casting, which I'm obviously really excited about. Now, outlets have previously reported the stuff with Lupita Nyong'o, and I'm really, really bummed that she's no longer attached to this. The most recent draft of the script was penned by Jay Basu, the guy who wrote The Girl in the Spider's Web, which I'm also really excited for, and Elizabeth Banks, who will also be directing, so I can't wait to see that. And mini synopsis for what the new film will be about. The film will focus on the next generation of angels working for the mysterious Charlie. Since the original films, the Townsend Agency has grown considerably and gone global, providing security and intelligence services to a wide variety of private clients with offices and highly trained teams worldwide. This film focuses on one of those teams. So it sounds like it's a multi-international corporation that is dealing with things all over the globe. There are basically different squads in different areas of the globe dealing with stuff, which is quite interesting because that means that could be potentially a ginormous franchise. Not just with the three leads that I was mentioning here, headlined basically by Kristen Stewart, but you could have, you know, this is the LA office, this is the London office, and this is the Moscow office, and whatever. You could have all kinds of different ones. It's kind of like the Avengers in the Charlie's Angels universe. And apparently it's supposed to open September 27th in 2019, so they've not even started shooting as far as I can tell, but it's going to come out in a year. And hopefully it's going to be, you know, it's going to have a lot of action. I think Kristen Stewart, she's done some action before, so I can't wait to see that. And speaking of bummers, as in Lupita no longer being part of Charlie's Angels, and I was really looking forward to that. Still not over it. Andy Serkis. Who isn't a fan of Andy Serkis, right? I'm a huge fan of Andy Serkis ever since he played Gollum in Lord of the Rings. I didn't know the guy before, right? But that is basically almost 20 years ago now. His latest film, in which he is acting and mocapping, because that's always what he does, but he's also directing. He was doing a Jungle Book film, right? Not to be mixed up with Favreau's Jungle Book. So now Andy Serkis' version has been retitled to Mowgli, which I think is cooler, better, whatever. But here's the real bummer. This is a movie that was supposed to come out, I think, this year. And now the headline is that the film is going to premiere on Netflix and not in the cinema. It's going to go to Netflix. Warner Brothers has dropped the film from its theatrical release schedule. Netflix picked up the movie for release for sometime next year. We don't know exactly when. Obviously, I mentioned Favreau's Jungle Book that it's been in competition with for quite a few years. I think Favreau's came out in 2016. Mowgli was pushed to 2018. It was supposed to come out sometime this year. So you're not going to have this whole Armageddon Deep Impact kind of a thing. If you don't know what that is, just Google it. It was a while ago. And the real killer here, what really, really bummed me out about this, is that Serkis shot Mowgli in 3D. And apparently it looks fantastic in 3D. Well, obviously he's going to say that's his movie, right? But he shot it in 3D. And I'm pretty sure that Netflix doesn't screen stuff in 3D. So how am I going to go and see this in 3D? Like, I want to go and see this in 3D. Is there such a thing as a 3D Netflix? Does that exist? How does that work? I mean, I know there are 3D TVs, not that I have one, but I'm not entirely sure. So Netflix will release the film, as they've done with Annihilation and with a few other films, in a limited release for a theatrical run. But the problem is that I'm not in the US. I'm here in the UK, and we never get the limited theatrical release, because that is just some how do you even say that? It's kind of like some red tape bullshit, that if it runs in the cinema for like, what, 2 weeks, it's eligible for award season. That's why they do limited releases of film releases in the cinema, right? So it's not something they do to make more money or to give it a broader appeal or something like that. We never get it. You don't get this limited release outside of the US, which is why I didn't get to see, what was it? A Brave Nation? What was the one with Idris Elba? I can't remember now. That was really good. I didn't see that in the cinema because it's not out in the cinema in the UK. Same with Annihilation, which I still haven't even bothered watching on Netflix because I was still so bummed I didn't get to see it in the cinema. Oh my god. And I'm already 28 minutes in. I'm so sorry. So here in the UK we're going to miss out, and I really wanted to see the 3D. Mowgli is supposed to be a much darker film than the usual Jungle Book versions that you hear about. It's closer to the actual novel than it is to the Disney classic. And the cast was phenomenal. There's Christian Bale as Bagheera, Cate Blanchett as Kaa, Benedict Cumberbatch as Shere Khan, Naomi Harris as Nisha, Andy Serkis as Baloo, Peter Mullen as Akela, Jack Rayner as Mowgli's brother Wolf, and a relative newcomer called Rowan Chant, who plays Mowgli. So I was really excited for that one. And I was like, okay, I'll wait 2 years. I watched Favreau's Jungle Book in the cinema, and I thought it was quite good. But overall, I was like, I prefer the Disney classic, maybe because of a bit of nostalgia, whatever it is. But I was really excited to see Andy Serkis' stuff because he's a really great filmmaker, and I like what he does with his mocap studio and his mocap production company. So I was really excited for that, and now we're not going to get it, and I'm really, really bummed. And with that, I'm going to tell you about the film I saw last night. Double feature. It was a double feature of Antman and Antman and the Wasp. So if you've never seen Antman, I think it came out in 2015. That's obviously been 3 years. It's a fantastic Marvel film that when it came out really surprised me. It is one of my, if not the most favorite Marvel film I've ever seen. I love this film. In case you don't know what this is about, so the original Ant-Man from 2015, the synopsis reads, forced out of his own company by former protege Darren Cross, Dr. Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas, recruits the talents of Scott Lang, played by Paul Rudd, a master thief just released from prison. Lang becomes Ant-Man, trained by Pym, and that's actually not right, trained by Pym's daughter, Hope, played by Evangeline Lilly, and armed with a suit that allows him to shrink in size, possess superhuman strength, and control an army of ants. The miniature hero must use his new skills to prevent Cross, also known as Yellow Jacket, never mind that, from perfecting the same technology and using it as a weapon for evil. So it's a very stereotypical storyline. You've got the unlikely hero who, through some weird shenanigans, ends up being the hero of the story and has to battle evil. That's just what happens all the time. But what the script actually does is it's just so well written. Like, all the characters are really well written. They have depth, there's personality, even side characters. And if you've ever seen Ant-Man and someone says Michael Pena, you're like, I know exactly who that is, because he's fantastic. He's just a small side character, but he immediately stole everyone's heart because he's the comic relief in that, and he does it so well. So it stars Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, aka Scott, Evangeline Lilly, who plays Hope Van Dyne, who is Michael Douglas's Hank Pym's daughter. I still think the name Pym is rather unfortunate. And we have Michael Pena as Scott's best friend and buddy. So the thing I really like about Ant-Man is how well written it is. It's not just the characters and the performances, the actors chosen for the roles are so perfect. It is absolutely ridiculous. But also the dialogue is written really well. They are really utilizing the strength of this universe, the rules and the characters, where the main thing is you have a guy who's as small as an ant, but as we all know, ants can carry, what, 100 times the size of their body weight or something like that. They're really, really powerful creatures, right? And how that all just works together and how funny it is while also obviously being quite tragic. It is one of the most well-rounded Marvel films that I've ever seen. And I, in general, enjoy the Marvel films anyway. But this, to me, I think is my absolute favorite one. And I've only seen it once when it came out in cinemas about 3 years ago. Yeah, pretty much 3 years ago. It came out in August 2015 here in the UK. And I remember sitting down and just like, we're going to watch this because literally there was nothing else on in the cinema. And we were like, might as well watch this. Can't be that bad. It's a Marvel movie, right? And I walked out of there going like, that was really good. I think this is one of my favorite films for the entire year. And it was. So it's an absolute brilliant film. It holds up really well after 3 years. I've just seen it last night. Like I said, I've not seen it since the original release. I had seen Antman and the Wasp, the sequel, a few weeks ago, and I was talking about this spoiler-free, so don't worry, there are no spoilers. I will not spoil a movie in this show, right? So I talked about this spoiler-free about 2 weeks ago. But after seeing that, I was like, I really want to see the first one again. And the first one becomes so much more if you've already seen the sequel and everything that happens in there. And I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna spoil it. It just came out today. I want you to see it and experience it and have fun with it. But it made me, seeing it again, made me appreciate it a lot more. Like, the first Ant-Man in itself is already a really well-rounded film with great performances, great action, really great action sequences, amazing use of CGI and perspective and all of that. They use situational comic really well. They use their characters really well. The dialogue's really well done. The editing's really well done. There's only one thing that I can find faulty with the first Ant-Man, and that is, sorry, this film is 3 years old, so I do not consider anything that happens in it a spoiler. That Scott and Hope are kind of like turning into a couple. At the very end, there's like a kiss, and I remember when we're sitting in the cinema and that happened, I was like, why are you doing this? This is absolutely ridiculous. They have absolute zero sexual chemistry. Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly. They're both hot and sexy in their own regards, but together they just don't work. They're like brother and sister. There's just no sexual chemistry. So when they kiss, I was like, it's just because the script said so on the second to last page. Blech. Not good. That's the only thing that I have a problem with. Other than that, I thought it was a fantastic film. And then obviously you stay through the credits and you see like all the things that happen there. And at the very end you see that there's a suit for the Wasp, which is teasing the Wasp in the sequel, that Evangeline Lilly, who is clearly a lot more capable than Scott is, that she's going to be a superhero as well. She's going to get the Wasp costume. It's not just going to be Ant-Man anymore. It's going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp. And one of the things that really irked me while I was watching Ant-Man originally was like, she's so much more capable than this guy. Why is she not in the suit? And I really had a hard time wrapping my head around it. I was like, when I was watching it originally, like 3 years ago, I was like, okay, fine. It's because I think it's based on a graphic novel, I would assume, some comic book stuff. And it's clearly called Ant-Man, right? So he's the hero. It's just the source material dictates that. But she's more capable. That's just, what it is. We just got to get over that. But after you've seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, and you find out a bit more about the history of her father and herself and her mother, it informs you and really adds a lot of different layers to the original Ant-Man, because when I was rewatching it last night, I was like, it was so obvious to me that, for whatever reason, it wasn't obvious to me the first time I was watching it. It's like that Michael Douglas's Hank Pym would never let Hope go into the suit because he doesn't want to lose her. And I mean, Scott even says that in the film, in the first Ant-Man. He's like, it's because I'm expendable and you're not. And that makes sense. And after I'd seen, just like 2 weeks ago, I'd seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, where the history of the family plays into the storyline and the character development quite heavily, without spoiling anything. That really informed my understanding of the first one right from the get-go. I was like, of course not. It's like, Hope. It's like, your dad loves you and he can't lose you. He lost your mother. You're the last thing that he has. There's no way that he was going to endanger you in any way, shape, or form. He would like to pad you in cotton pads and stuff just so nothing ever happens to you. It's like in Finding Nemo. It's like, I don't want him to go anywhere so nothing ever happens to him. And it's like, yeah, but then nothing ever happens to him. You know, that kind of thing. It's like, you can't keep people safe and lock them away, because then they're not going to have a life, right? But it was immediately obvious that that is what Hank is doing. He's just trying to keep his daughter safe. Whereas the first time I was watching it, I was more focused on Hope is so much more capable than Scott is. She shows him up every chance she gets. She is obviously so much more capable than he is. But the problem is she's not deemed expendable. And for whatever reason, after just having seen the sequel, I immediately got that point, and 3 years ago I just didn't. Maybe that's just me being stupid, but watching the sequel did add a lot of a different type of understanding onto the first film, Ant-Man, and that made it a lot more fun, and I really loved it because of that. It was like rediscovering it for the first time with kind of like a new set of eyes. So that was a lot of fun. And with that, I want to go into Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is a really, really great sequel. I was raving about it 2 weeks ago. I'm just going to quickly give you the synopsis for that. So Scott Lang, Ant-Man, is grappling with the consequences of his choices as both a superhero and a father. Approached by Hope Van Dyne and Dr. Hank Pym, Lang must once again don the Ant-Man suit and fight alongside the Wasp. The urgent mission soon leads to secret revelations from the past as the dynamic duo finds itself in an epic battle against a powerful new enemy. So what had happened is Ant-Man and the Wasp literally picks up shortly after Civil War. So in Civil War, Ant-Man showed up, and I think he was working on Captain America's team. There was this whole fight on the airfield where one half of the Avengers was battling the other half of the Avengers, because for whatever reason they couldn't just find a coffee shop, sit down, have tea and coffee and just talk about shit. No, they had to battle each other. That thing is more cinematic than my version, but I'm like, can we just like get along and just talk about our differences? And then he was caught because of that, because he went like, what was it, 60 feet tall, 65 feet tall. So it was hard to kind of not notice. And because of the Sokovia Accords, they were not allowed to do that, and so he's now under house arrest. And that is how the film starts. He's under house arrest. He's entertaining his daughter, who is, I can't remember the girl's name. I didn't write it down, stupid me. She's reprising the role from the first Ant-Man. She's still absolutely adorable and awesome. And so we are establishing that he's been under house arrest for almost 2 years. And that he doesn't have any contact with Hope or Hank, because they kind of didn't like the idea that he just went over there to fight with the Avengers without telling them about it. And they've obviously had to deal with the repercussions, because everyone knows, for whatever reason, I can't remember why everyone knows that the Ant-Man suit has something to do with them. So they're on the run. They're kind of like fugitives. And they've severed all ties with Scott, and that is kind of the outset that we start with in Ant-Man and the Wasp. So it's just like a few days for Scott to go to get like his little home device bracelet thing off. So he has this whole, I can't remember what it's called. It's like when perps usually get like an ankle bracelet that is monitoring that they're not leaving their premises. That's what he has to deal with. And then something happens and he gets in contact again with Hope and Hank, who are not his biggest fans. And they kind of have to get him out of the house so they can sort some stuff out that has to do with going into the quantum realm, which you've probably heard. That is a big thing in the sequel, Antman and the Wasp. And let me just quickly say who else is in the film. So we've got Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Douglas, and Michael Pena returning from the first one. New in this one is Hannah John Kamen, who's absolutely fantastic. I hope you can see this. She plays the character called Ghost. We also have Lawrence Fishburne and Walton Goggins showing up in this one. Absolutely fantastic. Great cast. She plays a fantastic character called Ghost, who is kind of after the same thing that Scott and Hope are after. Evangeline Lilly plays a brilliant Wasp, as capable as we've seen her be in the previous Ant-Man. She's even more capable now with an amazing suit. She can fly, she's got wings, she's obviously called the Wasp, right? And the film works really well, working with the rules that have been established in the previous one, that everything goes like big, everything goes mega big, mega small, and using those kinds of powers to their advantage. And now at this time we have a different kind of an enemy who can sort of like face in and out of things, so can go through walls and stuff like that, which makes it quite interesting when it comes to action sequences and fist fights and stuff like that. And the film uses those particular powers really well to make the action very engaging, very different, very unique. This is not the kind of action that you see in any other film other than an Ant-Man film, where things go mega big, mega small, at like 1 second this, 1 second that. The action is frantic and crazy, and there's like the kineticism of the storyline and of the action in this film is absolutely fantastic. Like I said, I've just watched it 2 weeks ago. I watched it again last night after midnight, and I thought, it was like, oh my god, I'm gonna fall asleep. There was no bloody way I was gonna fall asleep, because the film is just that good. It's really well structured, just like the first one. I think overall it's not as much fun as the first one, but then I find firsts are always easier, because you have to establish the universe, you have to establish these characters and introduce them and kind of make the audience fall in love with them, so to speak, find them interesting and captivating. So firsts are always easier, I think, than the middle one. But I really had a lot of fun with Ant-Man and the Wasp, because this time around they're really a proper team. Like in the previous one they still helped each other out, but it was Paul Rudd doing everything with the ants. Oh my god, yeah, seeing Anthony die again in the first Ant-Man, I totally forgotten about that. The first time he showed up, I was like, I had to force myself not to just go, Anthony! Because Anthony's awesome, right? And then I forgot that he dramatically, tragically dies, and I was like, I forgot about that, and I was really mega shocked and bummed out, and I was like, oh. This time around you still have ants showing up, but they show up differently than they did in the first one. In the first one it was more like we're utilizing them ant size, how to get like in and out of places and stuff. It was kind of like a more realistic approach to using ants, whereas in the second one most of the ants that you come up with, well, not most of them, but half, like it feels like 50-50. They have ants that are kind of like human size and help out Hank and Hope. They have a big laboratory where they're trying to do some experiments because they're trying to figure out stuff with the quantum realm. That's not a spoiler, because that was like all over the thing. It's like everyone knew that the quantum realm was going to be the big thing in the sequel. And it's really well done. Michael Pena comes back, and also him and the other two guys who were the comic relief in the first one, they're the comic relief again in this, and they do it really well. And they also have character progression. They have proper character development. They're not the same people that they were in the first one. And that's what makes this one so much fun. I really enjoyed that. But what really got to me was how emotional it got, and how like it gets seriously emotional. And Evangeline Lilly does some really good stuff in that. Like, she really had me going with a lot of the crap that she had to deal with. She's a great action hero. She carries herself really well. I mean, if you've ever seen her play Kate on Lost, Hope is kind of the same thing, but with superpowers, because she's got a superpowered suit. And she can kick ass, and she clearly does some, I don't know, kickboxing or something. But she's really, really capable, and she knows what she wants. She doesn't take bullshit from anyone. She's a great role model for young girls. She's not Wonder Woman, but she's kind of like the more mature version of Wonder Woman, whereas Wonder Woman is a bit more like fairy tale-y and goody-goody two-shoes. Well, at least in the previous one. But she's more of like the adult grown-up version of that. It's like who could potentially also say shit and fuck. I don't think not that anyone does. I don't think there's swearing in the film. Bobby Cannavale and Judy Greer are back as the as the mother of Scott's daughter and the new husband. I actually don't know if they're married or not, but they work really well together. Not that they have much character progression, but they clearly go along and get along well with Scott now. The daughter is fantastic. Love her. And there's so many little details in the film. There's a lot of great dialogue in the film. And like I said 2 weeks ago, you have Michael Peña's thing when he just retells a story and you see other people voicing what he's saying. And just seeing Evangeline Lilly going like the way that Michael Peña just talks in this film. And he's just... I realized last night that I'm the Michael Peña of the Ant-Man universe. Because he's like this like excited, exuberant little helper guy, Mr. Positive, who's just trying to help everybody, and every now and then, but he's got his own issues, but they're kind of adorable issues, even though they're weird issues. And yeah, it's just, he's fantastic. The other two guys are great as well. They all four of them, Scott, Michael Peña, I can't remember his name, Lewis. So Scott Lewis and the other two guys kind of formed a security firm because they used to be criminals and cat burglars, right? And now they're like, well, we really know what we're talking about because we used to break into things. Now we're kind of trying to sell you equipment that helps you keep people like us out. Which I thought was fantastic, because what are you going to do? You're an ex-con. What are your specialties? Well, my specialties is getting into places where I'm not supposed to be. And I love it how they made that potential issue a strength of the characters. They really went like, that's a problem for me, that's a handicap, and I've turned it into strength. And I love how that works out. Great set pieces, great action, really funny as well. And overall, I think this is one of the best sequels that I've ever seen, because usually, like, I'm trying to think of other sequels. I didn't like the second Avengers as much. I didn't like the second Guardians as much. I didn't like the second Thor. God, no, not even close. The second Captain America, the Winter Soldier one, was better than first. I have to give you that. But in general, the sequels usually a bit lackluster. Second Iron Man wasn't as good as the first one either, if I remember correctly. So this is a really, really good sequel. Especially watching them back to back really works. It's not like you have overexposure to the universe or the characters or anything, or it gets boring after a while. These two films really complement each other really, really well and make one big whole instead of having like two different episodes of a series. It's really well done. There's a hilarious thing with the truth serum that is a Michael Peña thing. I love how much ass kicking Evangeline Lilly gets to do. Her and Hannah Joan Kamen, who plays Ghost. I loved seeing them established as being physical badasses. Then turns out both of them are women, and then they're pitted against each other in certain scenes, and that works so well. Like, I can't remember the last time that I've seen something that well done. And doesn't mean that Ghost is a villain. They might just be after the same thing, and one doesn't want to give it up just as much as the other one doesn't want to give it up. Not a spoiler. These two ladies are absolutely fantastic, and I hope that we get to see a lot more in another sequel, because I think Ant-Man is now established as my favorite Marvel series. I really, really love it. I love the first one. It's just been re-established last night. Love the second one. I wasn't so sure whether it's as powerful as the first one, but after watching the double feature last night, I was like, this is absolutely fantastic. I just ordered the Steelbook on Savvy because I'm like, I need to have this. This is so bloody good. Great, great film, great action, and also funny, and also tragic. It's just a really well-rounded package. You can do the double, well, I don't think they're going to do the double feature again, but watch Antman. Either if you have it on Blu-ray, watch it on Blu-ray. I'll pop the Blu-ray in again. I think it's still on Netflix. Watch the first Antman, then watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, or even watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, then watch Ant-Man again, and then go and see Ant-Man and the Wasp again. It's really, really worth your time. It's one of the best superhero films out there. It's my favorite Marvel franchise, even though I like Thor 3. And I love the Guardians, I really, really do, but the second one just wasn't as good. Same with the Avengers, the second one just wasn't as good. This is the first one where I like 1 and 2 pretty much equal. Really awesome. Love Evangeline Lilly. Kudos for you, lady. Seriously, I love it. First titular Marvel hero. I know, Elektra, let's forget about Elektra. Since Marvel Studios is his own studio production company. So well done on that. Hannah John Kamen, great. If you don't watch Killjoys, as a TV show that she's in, absolutely fantastic. I hope we get to see a lot more of her. This is the lady I'm talking about. She's absolutely gorgeous. She's absolutely kick-ass and fantastic and captivating and interesting and nuanced, just like Evangeline Lilly. And I really, really enjoyed both of them. And yeah, I almost spoiled something. I'm not sure if it's a spoiler. Make sure you stay till after the credits. There's a scene halfway through the credits, which is really important. That's the scene that I unfortunately got spoiled on by IGN. It's really important that you watch that one because that will be picked up on in the next, I would assume in the next Avengers film. Make sure you watch that. And at the very end is something cute and funny and not as important. But overall, Ant-Man, seriously, it gets all the thumbs up. Had so much fun with it. And now another film that's coming out tomorrow, I think, or is it out today? It's called The Escape. And it stars Gemma Arterton and Dominic Cooper. Now that is, oh, sorry, and I should probably change this, there we go. Gemma Arterton and Dominic Cooper. Now it's an entirely different thing. It's got nothing to do with Marvel, it's not a superhero movie. This is a drama. A very tragic drama, so to speak. And I'm going to read the synopsis out for you. Tara is a housewife in suburban London who's raising 2 young children while married to an overworked, self-absorbed husband. That's not really fair, but okay. In desperate need of a change, Tara makes the bold decision to leave everything behind and buy a one-way ticket to Paris. Her newfound freedom and journey of self-discovery soon gives way to the realization that walking out on your life isn't so simple. I didn't read the synopsis before I copied and pasted it in here because that's a tiny bit of a spoiler that you buy a one-way ticket to Paris. But there we go. The film is not necessarily about the plot points. It's more about the performances and about the character development and how people react in certain situations. As I said, starring Gemma Arterton and Dominic Cooper. This film, I didn't really know what to expect other than it's going to be a character piece. The first half of the film made me really uncomfortable. And that is something that the film wants you to feel, I would assume, especially if you're a woman. Now, Tara and, what was it, Mark? Oh, I didn't write down his name, sorry. So, wife and husband. Let's just call them wife and husband. Or Gemma and Dominic. So, Arterton plays the wife, and the film really sets a very uncomfortable atmosphere right from the get-go. It's kind of bookended by the same scene. We see her getting ready in a mirror and leaving the house. And then it goes, well, I didn't realize that that's what happened, but it kind of goes back and tells the story then. And we wake up in bed with the two. It's early morning. And this is where it really, like, I didn't think about it, but effectively setting up the different characters and the power dynamic and everything of this couple. Now, before we even know that they have children, right? So it's early morning, the alarm bleeps, the guy wakes up, he rolls over, sees his wife, who's still asleep. And he nudges her and kisses her and is clearly trying to wake her up because he wants to have sex with her. And he rolls over her to the other side, and kind of like caresses her and everything, and goes like, how about a quickie? And proceeds to have sex with her. And the way it's framed, you see him having sex with her and grunting away and everything, but you see Gemma Arterton's face, and she's clearly not happy because she starts to cry. Speak of being uncomfortable within the first 5 minutes of a movie. I was like, okay, she's clearly not happy in this marriage. And he is either totally oblivious to what's going on, or he might just be a potentially abusive husband. Turns out, and that's one of the things that I really liked about the film, because it would have been so easy to write the husband as someone who just doesn't care about his wife, who just uses her as a maiden, as a lover, and as a mother. But he clearly cares about his wife. And he's not aware that she is not happy, and that he's doing some stuff to her that she's not happy with, because she doesn't tell him. She's trying to hide that fact, which I think probably a lot of women and wives and mothers are doing. This is quite a common theme in female storytelling. And the way that Dominic Cooper plays the husband is really well done, because this could have so easily gone down as like, yeah, he's clearly the villain. He's just like, I don't know, taking advantage of her or something, or he doesn't love her or whatever it is. But it is obvious from how he's playing him that the husband is clearly in love with the wife. And the husband is clearly under the impression that they have a good life because he makes a lot of money, has a white-collar job. They live in a nice house, they have 2 children, they have 2 cars, you know, they've made it, they live in a London suburb, I think they live in Kent or something. So they have a lot of money, they're well off, everything seems to be fine to the husband, to the outside world, just not to the wife. And that's what makes it so uncomfortable, because you as the audience, you are in the wife's face, you can see what she's feeling, what she's thinking. But everyone else around her seems to be totally oblivious to that, because she is trying to hide it. She's just not ready to kind of like dampen the spirits or something, going like, by the way, I don't love you anymore, I'm not happy, or whatever it is, right? So she sucks it up, and she has to go through this over and over again. And you can't even fault the husband. Like that's one of the things I really liked about the film. That usually you would go and blame the husband. It's like, oh yeah, he's doing this to her, he's not aware of what's going on. It's like, no, but she's not communicating with him. She's not telling him that she wants him to stop or something. She thinks this is expected of her, which is why she's just lying there and letting him do stuff, why she's just taking care of the kids while he's going to work, why she's taking care of the house, doing the school run, doing dinner, washing laundry, doing all the fucking shit, right? Because she thinks that's what's expected of her. And you shouldn't complain about these things, because that is what you're supposed to do. And sooner or later, obviously, stuff just explodes. That's what it's supposed to do. And she tells him that she's not happy. And that starts an avalanche of how are we going to deal with that. And it's a really brilliant character piece where it's never said, but for me it was very obvious that the wife is going through really heavy depression. She's not really asking for help. She talks to her mom in one scene, and the mother just doesn't get it. The mother, all the mother says is like, you have a husband that makes a lot of money, you have a nice house, you have 2 cars, you have a conservatory, what are you complaining about? But obviously there's more about life than just having a lot of money, right? So that's really interesting there. And it's kind of like she has to try and discover who she really is. It feels like she got married too young and had children too young, and she didn't really have a life, and she's now regretting that. That's kind of what it felt like to me. But I think it might also be quite open to interpretation. I would quite like to talk to other people that have seen the film. It's just come out, so no one's seen it yet. One of the things that also disconcerted me was, I think that is on purpose, that the wife doesn't have a name until the second half of the film. She's always babe, mom. She's a utility. She's the mother, she's the lover, she's the wife, whatever it is, right? But she's never a person. While the husband, I think his name is Mark, while the husband has a name. And he's clearly an identity of his own. He's a person of his own. Whereas the mother is just, you play a role. You are your role. You're not an individual. And the film brings that home really, really cleverly and really well. And it made me so fucking uncomfortable. It was crazy. But it's one of those things. It's like when you watch a train wreck, you can't help but watch. And that's kind of what the film is as well. It's like, it makes you uncomfortable, but you can't help but watch. And that is all down to Gemma Arterton being a really, really great actress. She gives a great performance in this film. It's all in her face, because she doesn't really say anything. And she does it so well. Like, she broke my fucking heart several times throughout this film. It's not really a sob fest, but it's just like, I feel so sorry for you. And I just want to hold you and have a cup of tea with you and just tell you that it's gonna be okay. It's a brilliant performance by both of them, actually. But it's clearly a Gemma Arterton vehicle. Really well done. Dominic Cooper holds his own. And I think in this scenario, it's really not easy to play the husband in a likable way. And yet Dominic Cooper manages to do so. I felt for the husband just as much as I felt for the wife, because the husband is just trying to fix it. It's like this typical man thing. It's like, what's the problem? I just want to fix it. And certain things just can't be fixed, right? Certain things just are. And then he loses his shit in one scene, and it's like, I'm so sorry, I just lost my shit, I didn't mean to do that. But it's like, it's because everything is so heightened, emotional, and it's just so powerful. And I love that you can understand both of them. I also, like, a lot of people go like, she's so selfish. She's supposed to be a mother. Why can't she just be a mother? Why can't she be okay with that? It's like, the problem is that some women, even if they have given birth to their children, so they are the biological parent, for whatever reason, they're just not made to be mothers. They just don't have that mothering instinct that a lot of other women have. And you can't fault them or blame them for it. You are who you are, right? And then when she eventually abandons her family, it's really powerful, because obviously you can't fully shed being the mother and the wife and the lover. You have responsibilities, and of course what a lot of women do is, and that's why they stay where they are and they do what they do, is they feel guilty, because this is your one fucking job. You're married to this guy, you have 2 kids, you're supposed to be the wife, the mother, and the lover. You're supposed to take care of the household, you're supposed to take care of the kids. If you do not, what the hell are you doing? And the movie really works with this theme really well. It works with depression really well, because yeah, no one ever fucking talks about depression, and the film doesn't either. And I think it makes that point really well by not talking about people not talking about it. It's like, it's really powerful. When Under My Skin made me really uncomfortable, but I think that is exactly what the film is trying to do. It's a great performance by Gemma Arterton as well as Dominic Cooper. Not sure if I would recommend people go watch it, especially in the cinema. It's a more intimate film that I think would potentially be more successful on video on demand platforms. But it's currently out, well, it's coming out tomorrow. So if it's playing near you and you're up for like a character piece, go and see it, check it out. I think it's really worth your while, but be warned, it's really heavy, thematical. It's a very heavy theme. It's not easy to digest. It will make you very uncomfortable. I think especially if you're a woman, it will make you very uncomfortable, especially in the current climate. Because the first few scenes, I thought the film was going somewhere entirely different, where I felt that the husband might be the villain, but there is no actual villain of the piece, which might also be potentially a problem of the film or the plot. But for me, it really worked. I thought that the ending was quite open, and open to interpretation. I think there's a certain way to read it, but overall, you can think whatever you want, really. And that's usually the kind of thing that I like in a movie, that is open to interpretation. A lot of people hate that, so if you're that kind of person, maybe you want to give this one a miss. But overall, I thought it's a really cool film. It's really well done. Like I said, in a lot of the details, like the wife doesn't have a name for the first half of the film, and then I think later, yeah, I think they said her name is Tara. I didn't even realize what her name was, because it was just so unimportant to the film to give the wife a name. It was more important that the husband had a name. And all of that. So she was more of a utilitarian human device, as in you're, like I said earlier, it's like you're the mother, you're the wife, you're the lover, you're the maid, the household person, you know, you have purpose in that. Whereas you would never say, it's like, oh yeah, he's a white collar office worker. No, his name's Mark. But she is mommy and she's baby. So that was quite informed in that regard. And the same thing with the depression and stuff. I thought it was really powerful, but by both Gemma Arterton and Dominic Cooper. Really, really well done. It was very surprising. Not necessarily the kind of film that I would recommend. It's like if you just want to have an easy night out at the cinema. But if you can stomach that kind of thing, or if you feel like you want to watch that type of a film, Escape or The Escape, will definitely work there. If you want to see a really great performances, great character piece, this is definitely one, but it's not easy to digest, so just be wary of that, okay? So we have a lot of stuff in the cinema at the moment. We've got Mission Impossible out, we've got Antman out, we've got The Escape, The Incredibles are out. There's like a lot of stuff out at the moment. So pick and choose whatever you want. If you are a Marvel person, I would definitely say check out Ant-Man and the Wasp, because it's a lot of fun. This is definitely popcorn entertainment. You can just grab your bucket of popcorn and just laugh and smile and eat your popcorn. It's fantastic. Absolutely great. Loved it. Watching it a second time, it was even better than the first time around. So thumbs up for me. The movie of the week this time around is definitely Ant-Man and the Wasp. And thank you very much, Evangeline Lilly, for being the first titular Marvel superhero, female titular Marvel superhero. Kudos to you. Thanks very much. See you next Thursday. Did that work?